Hey guys, Killix here. Multi-rank 1 PvPer and Mythic Plus title holder every single tier. Last season I achieved rank 1 Holy Paladin World in Blitz. Now I've been playing Holy Paladin at the highest level across PvP, Mythic Plus, and rating for over 20 years. And today I'm bringing you the most comprehensive Holy Paladin PvP guide for the War Within Season 2. Keep in mind this guide will still be somewhat relevant next season with a few tweaks and changes around every now and then. This guide is focused around 3v3 arena, specifically with the Herald of the Sun hero talent, which is what I've been playing lately at 2700 plus CR. I'll walk you through core mechanics, healing spells, cooldowns, utility, and damage tools, as well as a deep comparison between Lightsmith and Herald, as well as advanced tech, CC chains, macro setups, and real arena insight with step-by-step commentary. Timestamps are below, but if you're serious about improving as a Holy Paladin, I recommend watching the full thing. Keep in mind this will be an extremely long, in-depth guide, and if I miss anything, which I probably will miss a lot of stuff, just let me know down in the comments so I can update it on my next guide. I'm always looking to improve my guides, so... Now, Holy Paladin is a hybrid melee healer in certain situations that thrives on a burst healing arsenal, proactive cooldown management, and utility. Thanks to the hero talent system offering two distinct playstyles now, which is Lightsmith and Herald, the playstyles are stronger than ever. All right, nearly almost as powerful as we were back when corruption was a thing, right? Now, nothing will ever come close to that season for Pallies ever, but this is pretty close. Like Holy Pallies have been dominating this entire expansion. They usually start off very weak at the beginning of the season, but by the end of the season, they're usually dominating and on top, right? Now, our strengths are powerful burst healing via Holy Shock and Wog or Eternal Flame. We have stacked defensives like Sacrifice, Bop, Lay on Hands, or Mastery. We have durability, right? Like we're often not the kill target. We have Divine Shield, Divine Protection. Plate Armor helps versus melee, versus hunters, versus like warriors specifically, especially. We also have elite utility, right? We have Freedom, we have Repentance, we have Cleanse, we have Hodge. Freedom is insane to mitigate damage versus certain melee, all right? It's specifically warriors. Now we also have insane value in Blitz and 3v3 as well, especially Solo Shuffle, which is because of our fast-paced reaction-based healing and cooldown usage, right? Now our weaknesses are we don't have that many, to be honest, but we have some. We have very weak mobility outside of Divine Steed, and we often need to use Divine Steed to reposition ourselves or CC or avoid damage, right? So we're constantly pressing those abilities on cooldown, and we're also highly cooldown reliant, right? So poor CD usage and management equals fast death in this case. Now this takes skills to master positioning, juking, and uptime, right? The more you play Holy Pally, the better you get at it. Obviously, this is the truth with every single class in the game, but specifically Holy Pally, the difference between the lower Holy Pallies and the higher Holy Pallies are drastically different, okay? Now, we're a melee range dependency, less of an issue with a double beacon because we usually have double beacon out on both of our partners. So our mastery is always almost fully benefiting the entire game. And we're also a very predictable healer, especially without smart positioning or CC avoidance, right? Like really the only way to get out of CC that we have as opposed to every other class is pre-sacking CC and bubbling CC or bopping, which is not very reliant, right? Now, I'm going to go over Lightsmith, right? This is a build that has a high skill, very high reward hero talent. Lightsmith is an incredibly complex and aggressive support spec, right? That rewards precise cooldown usage and punishes mistakes pretty harshly. The core gameplay of this build is basically just rotating holy armaments through Holy Shock, Judgment, Bulwark, and Sacred Weapon usage. You usually always start the games with Hand of Divinity, Bulwark, and Blessing of Summer, used almost immediately. Now your Sacred Weapon redistributes health between you and your partner, okay? So this ability right here that rotates between Holy Bulwark first and Sacred Weapon, when you use a Sacred Weapon on a target, it allows redistribution of health based off a specific percentage of health, even if you are out of range of your target or LOS of your target. Okay, now Avenging Wrath synergizes very well with sacred weapons and triggers more procs because you're using wings every minute instead of every 2 minutes. Wings procs are also proximity based, right? So for example, I'll go over more of this in a little bit, but our strength are also, we have high burst healing and damage, strongly synergizes with Crusader, Avenging Crusader, and this is a strength and a weakness, but this is best used by experienced players who can rotate CDs well, right? And another small thing is that pressing Consecrate actually feels good in this build, as it passively heals and does damage as you WOG with the Divine Guidance hero talent. Now our weaknesses are, it has a very steep learning curve and it's extremely punishing. So bad CD trading equals almost immediate game loss. And it also struggles hard in solo shuffles without tight cooldown management, right? So overlapping defensives often leads to losses. This hero talent is extremely uncomfortable and weird to play and get used to, and it takes a very, very, very long time and an absurd amount of practice to perfect, right? And you will fail more than you will succeed. But once you learn it and perfect it, you will see how much better it is than the Herald. This discussion will be much longer than the Herald one because this build is far more complicated to perfect than Herald is, right? So you usually want to bulwark your squishy target partner and Blessing of Summer on a non-DPS pet, on a non-pet class DPS, right? So you do not want to summon hunters, you do not want to summon windwalkers, you do not want to summon demo warlocks, stuff like that. And aim to trigger holy armaments on 2 players in the opener, right? The most overpowered aspect of Lightsmith is the sacred weapon health distribution mechanic. Anytime you have a sacred weapon or use one, the target you have it on will redistribute health no matter where you are. Sometimes it is better to not even heal your target, run LOS far away from the enemy to avoid CC, and wait for the sacred weapon to redistribute health than just heal yourself up, right? For 4 seconds and then come back out and heal your partner again. Now you start off with Bulwark into sacred weapon as you use them, and they rotate between the two. Whenever you press your wings, it will auto proc a weapon as well. When you have a sacred weapon on someone, they will redistribute health every 4 seconds every 1 second per use of sacred weapon. Okay, so if you sacred weapon someone below 40% health, it will not start to redistribute health until they are above 40% health. 1 minute wings is better than 2 minute wings for this hero talent because you're pumping out more sacred weapons when you're pressing wings, as well as your proc wings that auto gives you the wings on 15 stacks when you judgment. It will give you a free sacred weapon. All right, you want to make sure you're closest to the target you want that weapon on specifically, so you're constantly weaving in and out of melee or in and out of wherever your partner is that is taking damage. All right, so that's the general consensus of Lightsmith. It's a little bit more complicated positioning wise and using your cooldowns wise, but it is a lot more rewarding than Herald if played properly. All right, now we're gonna go over to the bread and butter of this build, of this class, right? This is my favorite spec. This is what I play in every form of content, in keys and raid, in mythic plus, in threes and shuffle and blitz. I play Herald of the Sun, right? Now Herald is the preferred PvP build for most players, and it works well across all content. It's just an all-around more fun spec to play than Lightsmith, and it is drastically less difficult to manage. Now a lot more players are playing Lightsmith because they're simply just going to the WoW Armory and looking up the top rated pallies and just copying what they're playing, right? Which I never advise this. Now, obviously, a lot of pallies don't know not to do this because it's very common sense to just go to the ladder, go to the front page, pick the top pally, and copy what he's doing, right? But for newer paladins, you don't really understand how to play Lightsmith, and it's much harder for you to learn it than it is to learn Herald, right? So you're gonna end up performing way worse playing Lightsmith, even though it is the better build, as opposed to Herald, which is a much simpler build and very comparable throughput wise. All right, Now, the core gameplay of this build is to maximize Holy Shock uptime and convert 3 Holy Power or Divine Purpose procs into Eternal Flames, okay? You want to use Holy Prism basically on cooldown to maximize uptime of Dawn Lights. Always maintain Eternal Flame on yourself during passive absorb from Light of the Martyr, and you want to try to never Holy Shock yourself unless you have to, right? Now, our strengths are, it's a very smooth, consistent healing build. It's very forgiving and very easy to learn, and it's used across all forms of content. 3 Solo Shuffle, Blitz, Mythic Plus, Raid, and it's actually the best. It's actually the best spec right now in Mythic Plus, in Blitz, and in Raid. It's used over Lightsmith in every single form of content, aside from 3s in Solo Shuffle. Now, our weaknesses, we have far fewer panic buttons compared to Lightsmith, right? So we don't have the redistribution talent, and we don't have the bulwark, which is passive absorb healing, stuff like that. And it requires some sort of a discipline to manage your Holy Shocks properly, right? Because this build relies on playing around Holy Shocks and Eternal Flames and Dawn Lights, right? So you have to kind of get used to that. But for the most part with this build, you just heal. That's really it. You generate Holy Power and you heal. Now, you want to maximize Holy Shock uptime and convert Divine Purpose procs into Eternal Flame and Holy Prism used into Dawn Lights, all right? Use Holy Prism for free Divine Purpose procs. Chain Rising Sunlight stacks and spread Eternal Flame smartly to maintain uptime on your targets, okay? So if your group is taking spread pressure, you want to put Eternal Flames on 2 people. But if only 1 person or 2 people are taking damage, you want to just spam walk that 1 or the second target as well to maintain those Eternal Flame hots, right? Now, you always want to keep 1 Eternal Flame hot on yourself if you are slowly taking damage and absorbs the entire game when you don't have the Eternal Flame on your partner, just to passively heal the absorb off from Light of the Martyr. You want to try to not Holy Shock yourself ever unless you need to. You want to make sure that your Dawn Lights go on the target on your team that is taking the most amount of damage, right? Sometimes you will have to Eternal Flame yourself to heal the Light of the Martyr absorb off. Make sure you don't Prism and then Eternal Flame yourself to do this unless you are the actual kill target or you're taking a lot of damage. You want to use your charges of Dawn Light after you Prism on whoever is taking the most amount of damage on your team, right? That's very important. Then Eternal Flame yourself to take care of the absorb or any damage you're taking after you used your Dawn Light procs. I noticed some paladins take Morning Star, right, which is this PvP talent right here, Morning Star. I prefer Gleaming Rays. You normally have tons of Dawn Lights out the entire game, and having a 5% healing increase on your biggest heal, your 2 biggest heals, which are massively gapping every single heal in your arsenal, is Eternal Flame and Holy Shock, right? And this buffs your Eternal Flame healing by 5%, which is absolutely massive, okay? 5% is a drastic buff. Now, what I recommend is, unless you're a top tier player already comfortable playing Lightsmith, just play Herald. Stop looking at the ladder, stop looking at the best pallies, stop looking at the most min-maxed spec, and just play Herald. It will win you a lot more games and allow you to focus on learning the fundamentals first. And then later on, when you actually learn how to play the class and learn how to perfect it, then you can swap over to Lightsmith, right? Even I don't play Lightsmith, and I'm queuing into 2,900 teams every single day as Herald, and winning and losing, you know, trading wins, trading losses, right? Now, the core passive and Holy Power system of this build is that your mastery is based off a range, but this is usually covered by your double beacons, so it allows flexible positioning. Now, as well as your infusion of light procs, crits give faster flash of lights or stronger holy lights, and get. Now, this buff right now is not really tracked. It's very, very bad, but you want to get used to tracking this buff right now, because next patch it is actually getting a massive buff, and it will actually be used pretty much anytime you have it, right? Now, the other thing that you want to pay attention every single game is For your embellishments, you always want to keep your health above 80 to 85% the entire game to fully benefit from your embellishments. Okay, your embellishments actually do a decent amount of healing. Now we're going to talk real quick about our builders, which is going to be Holy Shock. You always have one on CD the entire game. So basically you always want a Holy Shock at least once 24/7 and have one on cooldown. Your Blessing of Ange procs make this button #1 priority. So anytime you get a Blessing of Ange proc, you want to press Holy Shock immediately, whether it is to do damage or to heal, right? Because you don't want to overlap Blessing of Ange procs, because it doesn't stack to 2, it only goes to 1. So sometimes you can get a double Ange proc in a row and you just wasted a massive Holy Shock. Your Judgment is a range builder. It reduces enemy damage. You want to try to use this as much as you can when the damage window allows it, right? Crusader Strike is a backup melee builder. You never want to overextend positioning for this ability, but if there's pets or if there's anybody near you, or if you're locked out, you're kicked, you can press this ability while you're kicked, right, to generate 1 holy power. Your Holy Prism doesn't specifically generate holy power, but it grants divine purpose and 2 dawn lights. Okay, so it does give you a free eternal flame. And your Tears Deliverance, it doesn't generate holy power, but it increases holy shock healing output, right? So it's gonna buff up your #1 or #2 heal pretty significantly. Your spenders are going to be Eternal Flame, Word of Glory, and your your go-to healing dumps, right? Your Flashlight and your Holy Light really are only used with your buffs. You rarely flash of light unless you have to, and then the only time you really ever Holy Light is every minute and a half with Hand of Divinity, right? So you press Tears and then you press Hand of Divinity, and you have those 2 charges of instant mana reduced Holy Lights. Light of Dawn and Dean Hounds is almost never used. You never press Light of Dawn. You can literally remove this off your bars. Like, I wouldn't even keep, if you only PvP in this game, I would not even put Light of Dawn on your bars, to be completely honest. And your denouts, I just don't think it's worth playing this. It puts you at a risk to get kicked, puts you at a risk to lose defensive pressure on your team, and the amount of damage that gets mitigated from this is never worth it to put you in that situation. Your Holy Prism does AoE healing when used on an ally, and generally you play Barrier of Faith as Lightsmith to provide more single target damage mitigation, but I still prefer playing Holy Prism because it got significantly buffed this season. Like something like, I think it got buffed by like 100%. Or like 150% or something crazy like that. So it's actually a pretty massive heal when you use it. Now I have some cool little advanced Herald tech tricks here that I use specifically whenever I play, right? Now, one of the most insights that I can give that I do is kick baiting, right? What I mean by this is you want to cast with 5 holy power to bait interrupts, and then Eternal Flame or Crusader Strike during the lockout. This allows you to eat more kicks and have your team cast more throughout a match. So for example, if you're fighting a team that has a lot of kicks, you can get 5 holy power, cast Flash of Light or Repentance will get kicked more often than Flash of Light, so you want to cast Repentance, and you want to bait a kick and get kicked. Now if you don't get kicked, you just got a free Repentance off, right? But 9 out of 10 times you will get kicked on that Repentance on the healer, and you'll be in a lockout, but you'll have 5 holy power, and if you have a Divine Purpose proc, you can double Eternal Flame while you're kicked out, while you're locked out, and then you can Crusader Strike and get a 3rd Eternal Flame, right? So you're still min-maxing and doing full amount of healing while you just ate a kick and you're locked out, right? So you're essentially mitigating CC while still keeping your team alive. Now, Dawnlight extension means basically if you double Eternal Flame a target, it will extend that Dawnlight after you Prism. They do not replace each other, okay? So never be afraid to Holy Prism and then double Eternal Flame somebody. It won't replace the previous Dawnlight that it applied with the Dawnlight buff. Another trick is Prism Weaving. which is Holy Prism, Eternal Flame, to try to make sure you have 3 Holy Power before pressing Holy Prism at all times, right? So you can double Eternal Flame if needed. Sometimes you'll have Rising Sunlight procs, so you can get 3 Holy Power, Holy Prism, Eternal Flame, Holy Shock, Eternal Flame. Or you can Holy Prism with 0 Holy Power, and you might have a Rising Sunlight proc, and you can Holy Prism, Eternal Flame, Holy Shock, Eternal Flame, right? Now, you want to try to use Holy Prism on cooldown the entire game, because it's gonna benefit you greatly. We're gonna talk a little bit about our defensives and our support breakdown. Divine Shield is a last resort button, and it is often a window where you can cast. And it's used when you're being extremely overwhelmed. Okay, so for example, what I mean by when you can cast is if you're taking a heavy amount of damage and you press Divine Shield and you have Hand of Divinity and Tears up, you want to press Tears instantly, and then you want to press Hand of Divinity, and then if you're still bubbled, you want to try to get a Repentance in on the healer, depending on your team's health, right? It is often better if you get the Tears and the Hand of Divinity out if you're still bubbled. Even if your partners are at like 30, 40, 50% health, it is better for you to cast a Repentance on the healer if you know you're going to get it, and then instantly top your partners with those 2 Holy Lights. Okay, your Divine Protection is just used proactively versus pressure whenever you're taking damage. Your Hand of Sacrifice, best used preemptively on incoming CC and burst. If your partner is taking damage and you see a mage sheeping you or a rogue running towards you, just sack your partner, right? It'll prevent CC, it'll prolong the window of you getting CC'd, and it'll allow you to top your partner and keep your team alive. Now, your BOP and spell wording, they're used hand in hand. Spell wording you usually play versus double casters. Your BOP is a anti-physical CD, right? So you can pre-bop bombs, you can pre-bop rogue setups. Anytime a druid presses Berserk or Incarn, I instantly bop. Anytime a warrior presses Spear, I usually always instantly bop unless I have a sack out or a glare. And anytime a rogue kidneys, if he doesn't have bomb and you have bop, you can just bop it to relieve pressure. Your lay on hands is sort of a panic button. You don't really want to sit on this too much and plan how to use it, right? You want to generally get this out at the beginning of the game, and then you'll have another one as the game goes on if you're playing the reduced lay on hands talent. Your Hand of Freedom is going to remove roots, and it allows you to reposition quickly, and it's key in melee matchups, okay? In certain melee matchups, it's better to freedom your partner instead of healing them in that moment, because it'll allow them to kite and mitigate way more damage than you would have healed off if you had not freedomed them, okay? Your Aura Mastery, you want to use this versus rogue silences and rep setups, or to push out heals. Aura swapping can actually be beneficial versus rogues, but I don't even do it. There are certain pallies that do it, but it's just like, it's not really needed. Like if you're getting like spam garroted the entire game, you can swap to Concentration Aura and it'll help out pretty significantly in a long game. But I almost always keep Diva Aura up, and Diva Auraing with Aura Mastery is insane. It is a massive defensive cooldown for your party. Your Cleanse also removes poison and disease and heals with a just reward. Now this is a pretty good heal, so you want to constantly be cleansing the entire game. Your offensive tools are going to be Judgments. Aim to press this a minimum of at least 20 to 25 seconds to maximize other talents, ideally on CD, but sometimes you aren't able to due to pressure on your team and having to prioritize other healing abilities first. Your Holy Shock can be used offensively if at full HP, right? Especially if Rising Sunlight procs are about to expire. You want to get those Rising Sunlight procs out ASAP if they're about to expire. Your Crusader Strike is a damage ability, obviously only damage, but it generates 1 holy power. And your Denounce, situational versus enemy healing, almost never play this, to be completely honest. Hammer of Wrath, I almost never play this in PvP aside from maybe some Blitz games, because in Blitz your talent builds are a little bit different, so you're able to have Hammer of Wrath. Now your Consecrate in Hallowed Ground is very powerful versus melee comps, so always keep down Consecrate, always judge melee targets, and always keep those freedoms and slows up. Your crowd control and utility are going to be Hodge and Repentance, and it setups pretty massive CC chains. Triple DR reps are actually game winning, okay? Your Blinding Light best with Mage and Hunter comps. The only time I really ever play this is if I have a Mage or a Hunter on my team, or if I'm fighting like a comp where I will literally never cast the entire game. Your Divine Steed can be used to quickly reposition, and it's often used to get a Hodge or Repentance, or to just run away, right? So I'm going to go over in this next section of a ton of in-depth tricks that I use to play better as a Holy Pally, okay? So in the opener, generally I do this versus every single team, every single game, right? I'll instantly run to the pillar, cast Hand of Divinity, Tears Deliverance, put down a Consecrate. If there is a stealth class, I'll Prism my partner and Blessing of Summer, a non-pet class, at the same time. I'll make sure to use up those Holy Light charges before I press any other CD and start rotating defensives, wings, and divine tolls, right? Those Holy Lights will also extend your tiers, so make sure to use them. I definitely let them expire sometimes as well, though, to be completely honest, but I've been trying to get better at tracking my Hand of Divinity stacks and actually using them properly, but sometimes I use it and I just honestly completely forget about it and they expire. Now, I have a trick with Holy Prism as well. I'm not sure if other Pallies use this, but it's something I use specifically. If you are fighting stealth classes such as rogues, druids, hunters, whatever has stealth in this game, you can use Holy Prism on an ally. If an enemy stealth class is within 30 yards of your target, it will automatically take them out of stealth. Now, keep in mind, this does not put you in a combat versus rogues, so they can still sap you. But if you're quick enough, you can actually get in combat before the sap, right? So if you Prism, target the rogue, and attack them, you can get in combat and you won't get sapped. Most games that I fight a stealth class, I will mount behind a pillar, cast Tears, Hand of Divinity, Summer my DPS, and then Prism a DPS partner that is out in the middle of the map. Most games it will take a stealth class out and I'll instantly get combat off of it, and it'll save me from getting sapped or having or ruining a druid's opener. Okay, if you're fighting RMP, for example, rogue mage comps, I would instantly cast Hand of Divinity, then Tears as soon as the gates open. Do not even run to the pillar. Often if the rogue is fast enough, they can sap you before you even cast your Tears, which just completely ruins your opener and it makes you fall extremely behind. The other thing is going to be your beacon management. Knowing how to use your beacons and when to swap them is essential in most matches. All right, there are certain games where you simply do not have the globals to swap your beacons, so knowing who to have them on to begin with is essential. Normally you want one beacon on the target on your team that often gets attacked or is just getting trained. Then your second beacon will be on your second DPS partner, obviously, right? Unless they are legit taking 0 damage the entire game, then you'd want to swap one beacon to yourself. Versus DK dev evokers, I recommend always keeping one beacon on yourself no matter what. Okay, now the wings trick I have here is gonna be basically if wings is about to come off CD and you have an awakening proc ready or very close to one, and you are able to hold on to wings until then without someone dying, then you want to wait for that awakening proc to stack, press normal wings, press judgment to extend that wings. Okay, now that judgment wings is going to be empowered as well by your regular wings, so it's going to do more damage. And then you also want to never press judgment with an awakening proc, then press normal wings. It will replace the awakening proc wings. Okay, generally you do not want to hold your awakening procs for more than a couple of seconds, or like 5 to 6 seconds at max, unless you know the enemy team is about to do some massive damage, right? But even then you want to make sure you get that judgment out and proc your wings before the damage even starts, because if you're judging during the damage, your partner might actually die, right? Or you will fall behind. The other thing I have here is with the Rising Sunlight management. Okay, this is a talent that when you press Avenging Wrath or cast Divine Tolls, you get 2 charges of Rising Sunlight, and then it allows your Holy Shock to cast 3 times instead of once. Okay, There's actually quite a tricky talent to maximize. I know it seems very simple, but anytime you press Wings or Divine Toll, you will gain 2 charges and allows you to Holy Shock to heal or DPS 3 times when pressed once. Ideally, you always want to Wings into Divine Toll, then start cranking Wogs to lower the CD of your Divine Toll due to your tier set, and spamming the Rising Sunlight Holy Shocks. But this is often actually overkill in a lot of situations, in a lot of matchups, and not needed most of the time, okay? Most of the time, you will just Divine Toll without Wings just because you don't want to have too many Rising Sunlight charges. Sometimes you might actually have them expire because you're either CCing, you're CC'd, you're repping, you're weaving in other abilities aside from your Holy Shocks to maximize your HPS or your playstyle, or you're kiting, or you're moving around, or whatever is the case. If this is ever the case and your Rising Sunlights are about to expire in 1 to 2 seconds and you have, let's say, 2 stacks of them, either Holy Shock your partner to top them, but if they're at full HP, just Holy Shock an enemy, right, to get those Rising Sunlight procs used for more output. Do not weave in Eternal Flames if your Rising Sunlights are about to expire. It's better to overcap on Holy Power and spend the Rising Sunlight procs on a Holy Shock rather than to cast Eternal Flame in this situation. But for the most part, just try to keep track of your Rising Sunlight uptime so you don't actually waste them and you can min-max using them. It's arguably your best heal, like your burstiest heal. Cleansing is going to be, generally speaking, you want to cleanse on cooldown the entire game. There are certain comps where you won't really have globals to cleanse, such as DK X comps, and generally speaking, it's not that good to spam cleanse into DKs anyways. But for the most part, any team you're fighting is very good to be constantly cleansing as much as you can. And the reward cleanse talent, the just reward talent that you run, which heals when you cleanse, actually does a decent amount of healing, so it never feels bad to press cleanse. This can also be used as a small heal if you're running a situation where you can't really cast anything due to kicks being up on the enemy team and have no other heal available in that global, okay? Versus certain comps, it's not good to spam cleanse though, such as RMP, Rogue Mage, simply because you want to try to cleanse as many sheeps as possible on your partners throughout the entire game. Now, one of the things here I'm going to go over as well, another trick is how to properly utilize your repentance. And you'll see later when I post some videos with commentaries how overpowered repentance usage can be, okay? You want to hodge and then repentance 3 times, right? This can actually win games, force cooldowns, trinkets, or cause healers to panic. At the end of this video, I'll have actual footage of 3v3 matches and you'll see just how overpowered even getting a 2-second repentance in certain matchups are, all right? Versus druids, you really only want to rep after hodge. You can constantly pressure druids with rep even if you don't get it off. This will make it so the druid is constantly shape shifting or losing HPS or constantly running away from you, okay? Which in turn makes them lose HPS over a match. And it allows you to avoid CC because they're not sitting there spam cloning you the entire game. Versus shamans, you want to juke wind shear and grounding. Now keep in mind, shamans can still ghost wolf your rep, but the same concept applies to shamans as it does to druids. It can be used to bully shamans into spam shape shifting as well. Priests are a little bit harder to get reps off of because you have to juke death, you have to juke fade, and you have to stay far enough to where you don't get feared and then rep. You can constantly bully priests as well with rep even if you don't get it off, because it forces them to run away, it forces them to move, and it forces them to lose uptime on their partners. Versus paladins, try to get a hodge out before you get hodged to instantly cast a rep the second you hodge. If they don't trinket, cancel your rep and recast it again like about a second later so you don't overlap it with your hodge, and then try to get triple reps out. Sometimes they will instantly trinket, then hodge you, and you might get a rep during that window. I would advise not trinketing that hodge if they do trinket, hodge you, and rep you. Just sit the CC, and remember the next hodge you have, you can hodge rep them, and they won't have a trinket. They'll be forced to use bubble or some sort of massive cooldown from their partners, right? Versus monks, it's the same concept as paladins, but be mindful of where their port is. Often a monk will play the talent that allows them to port while stunned, so you want to position yourself in a way to where if you hodge the monk and cast rep, if they do port, you can still land that rep without repositioning too much, right? Because if you hodge them and you start casting rep and they port behind a pillar and you run behind the pillar and you try to get a rep and they're out of that hodge already, they're probably going to in-cap you, leg sweep you, ring you, or kick you, right? So it's going to be a wasted attempt at a rep. Rep and hodge are extremely strong and viable CC methods in arena, right? So, but remember, never overextend unless you have a way to quickly get out, and never focus on CCing the enemy the entire game. I see this a lot in solo shuffle and a lot with newer paladins. Every paladin thinks they have to CC and it's their job to CC. Your job is to keep your team alive, not CC the enemy. Focus on healing your partners first. Then as you get better at that and you start to understand the game and start to understand how to rotate cooldowns, then you can start focusing on CCing if you are able to, okay? But you never want to sacrifice or lose healing over CCing. Now, we're going to talk about mana efficiency and the pacing of a game. You're going to want to run Divine Plea if games are long, okay? Versus Double Caster, you will almost always run this, as well as Spell Bop instead of Consecrate Freedom, Hallowed Ground. So you'll play Darkest Before Dawn, Divine Plea, and Spell Bop. You want to avoid overhealing with this if the games are extremely long and you still go even with Divine Plea. You want to pace your Eternal Flames and other healing carefully if the game is extremely long, right? I've had games that were like 12, 13, 14 minutes long that are just absolutely insanely long. And we just go through like 3 mana bars. It's actually crazy, right? You want to use Unwavering Spirit talent instead of Protection of Tears if you're still going for that shorter cooldown on Aura Mastery. Now, as a last resort, you can play Divine Vision for much faster Aura Mastery instead of Spell Bop, right? This is not optimal, but it's somewhat viable versus certain comps. Remember to always LOS purge classes when pressing Aura Mastery, as the Divine Plea buff can actually get purged. Properly using Unending and Empyrean Legacy takes a bit of tracking and practice. You want to make sure you always have the Darkest Before the Dawn PvP talent. Ideally, you want to proc your Empyrean Legacy every 25 seconds. However, you want to, how do I say this? Ideally, you basically want to proc your Empyrean Legacy every 25 seconds. However, procking it on CD every 20 seconds is fine. Sometimes you will not be able to maximize this buff because you aren't able to cast Judgment, or you need to WOG or use something else to keep your partners alive instead, right? You want to make sure that in the window you press Judgment, no one will die. So in situations where your partner is very low HP, it is often not worth pressing Judgment to get the Empyrean Legacy buff unless you know for sure they won't die or you won't get CC'd right after. Now remember, your Light of Dawn only has a 15-yard range, but in most situations it is still going to reach certain partners and help passively heal throughout a game. You never really want to put yourself in an awkward or bad position to heal your partners with the Light of Dawn proc, but if you can move yourself near the partner without getting CC'd or spam slowed, it is worth, so the Dawn Light actually reaches them, right? So you benefit more from it. This gameplay method is very good versus Rot and AoE teams, right? Now, we're going to talk about your blessings real quick. It's a very simple concept. Generally, you want to use your blessings on CD 24/7 the entire game, and almost always on yourself. There are certain situations where you will spring the target they are attacking, Blessing of Spring, but usually only if they are literally the only person taking damage the entire game. One trick as well that you can do in solo shuffles, for some reason blessings do not reset in solo shuffles, like they don't rotate back to Blessing of Summer. So if one round you are starting you are in the starting zone, you have Blessing of Winter, just use it ASAP to get it on cooldown and start rotating the next blessing, as mana is not an issue in solo shuffle. You will never run out of mana in solo shuffles. The other thing is your Blessing of Summer can also be used on a DPS instead of yourself, unless you want to pump out more damage. If you want to pump out damage, use it on yourself. If you want to keep your team alive, use it on a partner. I almost always use it on a partner. Your Hallowed Ground is going to be key in most melee matchups that you fight. You want to pair this with Hallowed Ground talent, Consecrated Ground talent, and Righteous Judgment talent. It's going to give you giant consecrate zones. It's going to give you slow immunity, and it's going to slow your enemies that are in it, right? Especially versus warriors. You want to kite warriors behind pillars while slowing them, and always hodge on cooldown behind the pillar to pressure DPS. Hallowed ground paired with certain talents is extremely overpowered this season and can be used to your advantage versus a lot of melee, such as warriors specifically, even rogues in certain situations. But it's not quite as ideal versus rogue because they can usually always stun lock a target or step to them and catch up. Pairing Hallowed Ground with Consecrated Ground and Righteous Judgment will increase the size of your Consecrate and make it slow enemies by 50% and keep all your partners permanently immune to any slow effect while in it, right? Versus Warrior, there's a specific way to play if you have a caster on your team. It is often better to have your partner drag the Warrior behind the pillar while you keep up as many Consecrates as possible on your partner in a path to allow him to kite the Warrior around the pillar. Keep in mind you will be slowing the Warrior at the same time. You want to juke his spell reflect and hodge him on cooldown every 30 seconds behind the pillar. Make sure when you hodge the Warrior, he's LOS of his healer, right? And he'll trinket the first hodge and the second hodge and so forth. He'll have to sit because you probably won't be able to get cleansed. The other tips and trick I have here is for juking and learning kick patterns. Now, learning a kick pattern of a person you're fighting has really no set formula. You really just learn it through experiencing versus the same people over and over and over again. Some people will kick instantly, some people will kick late, some people will never kick, right? So whenever you're queuing at a certain level of CR, so if you're spam queuing at 2500 every single day, you want to try to be mindful of the people you're fighting and kind of try to remember how they kick, right? Because learning how to juke somebody as a Holy Pally is huge. Especially you want to force kicks with Flash of Light, get precogs. If you get a precog, for example, you can guaranteed cast a rep, or if you're taking damage or dying, you can Tears Deliverance if you have it up, and Hand of Divinity during that precog, and it'll allow you to recover, right? Now, trading cooldowns and trading defensives properly is key to Holy Pally. In this section, I'll go over just a general idea of how to properly trade defensives. Now, keep in mind there are a lot of situations that can differ depending on your matchups and comps, but I'll just give a general idea of how to trade properly, okay? Holy Pally has been a healer that has to trade cooldowns effectively for years now, and knowing how to trade cooldowns before the damage even happens is key to maximizing the efficiency of this class, okay? One good way to improve your cooldown usage is to just research what other classes have as an offensive cooldown and add them to your Omni bar, so that way when they are pressed, you can keep track of them and mirror a cooldown use. So for example, if a Feral presses Berserk or Incarn, you'll instantly bop the target they are on no matter what HP they're at. This will prevent most of the damage from the Feral on their biggest offensive burst of the game, right? You can do a lot of things like this versus every single class, such as when a Mage presses Combust, you can Aura Mastery or sack. When a Rogue presses Dance, you can sack or Aura Mastery. When an Ellie presses Ascendance, you can Aura Mastery or sack, vice versa. You almost always want to use your defensive cooldowns on the enemy's offensive cooldowns while your partners are at high HP rather than low HP. Unless you know you have an absurd amount of healing stored up, you can use and no one will die, right? So if you have Wings up with Rising Sunlight procs and a ton of holy power, you can often hold off on using certain defensives and cooldowns or sit certain CC instead of trinketing them instantly, right? Remember, most cooldowns are strongest before the damage hits. Sacking before CC lands, or when burst is about to connect, or bopping right as the CD comes out, or Mastery before a CC chain, for example. Like if you're about to get sheeped and your target is taking damage and you press an Aura Mastery, that's often enough to allow you to sit that CC, right, without using another cooldown. If you wait to react too late, you'll eventually fall behind and use multiple cooldowns instead of just one. Your Light's Revocation talent also allows you to bubble while you're on Forbearance, so you can also lay on hands or bop yourself out of stuns if you're in a bad situation or close to death. And then if you still need bubble, you can still bubble if you have to, right? Normally layer bop is enough for, but sometimes you might still have to bubble. This is very good use of your CDs to prolong your bubble, which is arguably your biggest defensive. Now, this is a small list of certain abilities and how to trade versus them, right? Now, keep in mind, there are a lot more abilities in this game than this, but this is just what I am going to mention. Rogue CDs, right? You want to sack bop freedom to allow your partner to mitigate damage outside of stuns. Generally, versus assassination rogues and shadow priests, you will also want to play the righteous protection talent, which will make your target immune to poisons, diseases during sack. This will prevent a ton of damage. If a mage presses combust, you want to aura mastery or sack. If a rep presses wings, you either want to bop, spell bop, or sack, or even aura mastery. If a warrior spears or avatars, you want to bop freedom, consecrate freedom to try to kite or glare them. Glaring a warrior spear is massive. If a druid presses incarn, you want a divine protection, aura mastery, or bop, depending if it's feral or not. Ascendants from shamans, you want to sack or pre-lay on hands the burst one shot. So often when an Eli shaman presses ascendants, they have a massive amount of burst that can actually one shot a target. If you lay on hands during that window of ascendants, it's actually a very good use of lay on hands. Windwalker CDs, you want a divine protection, lay on hands, if no sack, otherwise sack high or bop leg sweeps and karmas. Ideally you want to bop karmas to try to kill them, but sometimes you're forced to bop leg sweeps early. Keep in mind there are a ton of more cooldowns enemies have that I haven't mentioned, right? Never overlap divine shield with sacrifice unless someone is literally about to die, and normally always sack as a first CD. If they swap to you, press divine protection. If the pressure is constant and you can't keep up, and you can chain it with an aura mastery for more damage reduction after your divine protection. If you're still dying and they hard swap to you, then you can either lay on hands, bop, or divine shield. Try to avoid lay on handsing yourself unless it's absolutely needed. It is often best to save it as an oh shit button for your partners. All right, now this next trick is going to be your Searing Glare. Searing Glare is one of the most overpowered defensives this expansion. It's a 25-yard range, so it's very short range, but it almost always completely negates 100% of the damage for 4 seconds unless the target is cleansed. It is often worth pressing this if you know you can cast it and land it on both enemy DPS, even if your partner is extremely low health. Generally, I cast this in the opener to try to negate the enemy team's opener, if possible. Okay. You want to try to make sure that you don't get kicked on this, so make sure you keep track of kicks as well. One other tip that I see a lot is that I'm going to give you guys is just don't panic. In certain situations you will fall behind and it will make it, you might feel like you have already lost the game, but always keep trying and always keep playing the game. If you get lost and don't know what to press, literally just press anything. I often see newer Holy Paladins get overwhelmed and miss out on so many globals or miss out on pressing cooldowns. Literally just press your buttons and improve as you play the game. There are so many games where I come so close to losing early on and I keep trying and I randomly win somehow, right? So just press your wings, press your freedoms, press your sacks, just press buttons. That's literally it. Now we're gonna go over some macros, add-ons, and UIs real quick. Your focus macros are somewhat important. You want to try to have one for Hodge, for Rep, for Bop, for Sack. I advise having a focus macro or a way to quickly put a certain enemy on a focus. The way I quickly swap focus targets is by having a focus macro and then I keybind it to my C button, right? So anytime I press C, if whatever I'm targeting will be put on focus. So I'm constantly swapping focus targets the entire game. Or I right click my Gladius, which is a little bit slower, right? So you want to keybind your focus target. Your mouse over macros you should have for freedom, bop, and sack at the least, right? Now you'll notice when I play, I click my targets, but I also play with mouse overs, right? So I use both. They're both good. I advise using both, to be honest. So the thing with mouse over macros, you have to be careful because Mouse overs can be a little bit tricky if you are not used to them. If you aren't paying attention where your cursor is, you can accidentally attack an enemy instead of healing an ally, which can cause your partner to die or you to break CC randomly throughout the game, right? What I recommend, especially if you're a new player to the game, is make arena 1, 2, 3 macros. They're optional, but they're extremely strong, and once you get used to them, they're the best way to target anybody. Generally, the most overpowered macros for Paladin PvP is a cast at party 1 and 2 macro for cleanse, sack, and bop. Instantly using these 3 abilities in certain situations can actually win you games, whether it being pre-bopping or sacking or pre-sacking a bomb, for example. One quick thing we're going to go over is cancel aura macros. Versus mages, it is extremely important to have a cancel aura macro for your freedom and your bop so they don't steal it. So if you ever have, you can honestly keybind this into your mount or something like that. Use a keybind you already have. I wouldn't specifically create a cancel aura macro and create an entire new keybind for this. You can't mount in combat anyways, so it won't allow you to mount, and it'll just remove your freedom or your bop if you use it on yourself. Okay, now don't accidentally press this if you're not fighting a mage, right? You don't want to remove your bop or your freedom if you're not fighting a mage. Now for UI and weak auras, you guys can check out my Discord for all my up-to-date UI features and weak auras. I'll have that posted down in the bio, so scroll down and look at that. We're going to talk a little bit about races and what's best at the moment. I think the best race right now is Draenei. It has a small passive heal, and it gives you a massive main stat, primary stat, right? I think it's about 1,000 intellect, which is actually quite a bit for a passive buff. But there are also other viable races, right? You can play Dark Iron Dwarf. This one is top tier for HPS throughput. It removes debuffs but shares cooldown with your trinket. So you want to be careful how you use this. You don't want to use this and then not have trinket. But the buff that you get from Dark Iron Dwarf is absolutely massive for your throughput. You can play Zandalari Troll, which is a passive 5% movement speed, and this is actually very, very good for Blitz. Speed is king in Blitz, especially as a Holy Paladin when you're moving around all over the place non-stop the entire game. Tauren, it's basically just War Stomp and more HP. It's not very good in the current meta. It used to be good, now it's not that good. And your Blood Elf is a passive 1% crit buff, which is okay. I would advise playing Draenei. Now, human, for example, you notice my Paladin is a human, but this is really only for completionist purposes. I do not advise playing this race. Human ratio is extremely bad and often not even used. The passive secondary stat boost is okay, but it's not better than the Draenei one. Now, if you want to look at gear, talents, and stats, I have a full in-depth separate video guide covering gear, stats, gems, enchants, and talents. Link is in the description below, so check those out. All right, guys, that wraps up the most detailed Holy Paladin PvP guide you'll find for the War Within Season 2. If you learned anything, drop a like, subscribe, and come check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/KillaKTV. I'm live anytime I play. Comment below with your comp, your MMR, your CR, or any questions you want answered in future videos or in the comments. I'll be replying to everyone. Good luck out there and stay holy. All right, now what I'm gonna do here for the rest of the video, I'll have a couple of actual high rated 3v3 matches and I'll be commentating them as they play out. All right, so if you tune in this far, thanks for watching, guys. And if you want to see the commentating, just stick around and I'll put that up right now. So we're gonna start here with this first match. Hide this. This is gonna be versus a warrior mage Holy Pally, and in this specific video, actually in all of these videos, you're gonna see just how good Repentance actually is. Okay, so first thing I do is I put up Hand of Divinity, Tears, I put up Summer, I Prism, I Toll. I haven't wings yet, but I've still told. Just spam Wog, I get a Hodge there. I try to go for a rep here, but I don't get it. As you can see, my Hand of Divinity proc ran out. I literally didn't even use it, right? Because that's how cooked I am. I have no idea what's going on. Now, in this game, you'll see that I am able to sit a lot of this CC, and I'm very greedy with CC because I'm able to, because of the way my team is playing. So here, they're pressuring my Warlock, but I know he's fine because he's not going to take more damage, and he played defensively very well, right? Now, the other thing that happened right here is my Rising Sunlight procs ran out at 2 charges, right? So I should have double Holy Shocked him, but I was CC'd so much and I was doing so many other things that they ran out. This is what I'm talking about when I say keep track of your Rising Sunlight procs, because even I make this mistake, okay? So like right here, I try to go for a rep. I end up not getting the rep, but it forced a sack on the mage to prevent the rep. Okay, so that was a very good usage of rep right there, right? So the Pally didn't have to sack the mage there, but because I was casting a rep, he sacked him to prevent the rep, even though he lined it, and I would not have gotten it. All right, I'm gonna go here. So what you see me do here, I did this on purpose, right? So I get DB'd here. The Pally's gonna run in, and okay, so look at what just happened here. I'm gonna go back a little bit and I'm gonna explain this to you. I have a gate on the pillar. I'm stacking on the gate when I get CC'd. So right here I go for a rep, he sacks. He sacks to try to avoid the rep. He triggers the Hodge. He sacks to try to avoid the rep. Right here, the mage comes in to DB me. I'm stacking on the gate, and I'm spam gating during the poly. So what I did right there, when he landed the poly on me, I gated into the consecrate of the enemy team because I noticed there was a consecrate on the opposite of the gate, and any CC that was on me right there would instantly break to the consecrate, which is exactly what happened right there. Right, so that allowed me to not use a major cooldown because I avoided a triple sheep, or I got a gap in between the sheep, and it allowed me to top my partner instead of getting triple sheeped and my partner having to wall or port, or me having to bubble heal. Right, so as you can see, our offensive pressure right here is massive, right? So I use Aura Mastery right there to keep my team alive. Right here, I know they have nothing. They don't have trinket. They don't have, I don't think they have bubble, and I'm able to offensively pressure here because my Warlock is dying, but I still have spell bop, I still have bop, he still has wall, I still have bubble, right? So I press Aura Mastery to try to prolong the damage intake, and I run in and I Hodge the Pally, and I get a rep here, right? So I get a full rep. Their entire team is at half health, and I'm trying to go for another rep here, but it gets kicked. But before I go for the rep, I cast a Holy Prism to get a Divine Purpose proc, just in case I get kicked. So if I get kicked and I get locked out during this rep, I can still heal, which is exactly what happened. I got kicked, but I can still Eternal Flame and Dawnlight. Right there, what I should have done, instead of like waiting for the lockout to finish, I should have just Crusader Strike the Pally, and then I would have been able to Eternal Flame again, right? So now I get full feared. Right here, I bop the Warlock because I just got full feared, and my Warlock is the only one that's taking damage. My Windwalker has Karma and Diffuse, so he's fine. He won't die. They don't have bop. So I can sit this fear. I don't have to bubble because I bop my Warlock. So by bopping my Warlock, I'm able to remove Mortal Strike or Sharpen from him, get him out of a fear, make him immune to the warrior's damage, and still allow him to stay offensive and do damage. Now the mage purged the bop, obviously. Right, so I know my monk is fine. I'm not panicking. I'm not panicking on the monk, but right here I get rung. So I bubble this, and my Warlock's fine. He still has wall, he still has dark bag, he still has reflect. I should be able to top him here. The Pally bubble is in the mage dice. Okay, you see how like offensive I'm playing with rep and how I'm constantly getting it when I need to. Now this next game is going to be into Destro Pharaoh Holy Paladin, which is actually a very good comp. Same thing here. The Game's gonna start here in about 10 seconds. Playing Glare, playing Hallowed Ground. I run in, I Tears, I Hand of Divinity, I Summer, I Holy Prism. It took the Pharaoh out of stealth right there. You saw that? You saw how I just prismed my Warlock and it took the Pharaoh out of stealth? The Pharaoh pressed Incarn. I instantly bopped it on the Windwalker. The second he pressed Incarn, I instantly bopped it. Right? Now my Warlock ports, he's mitigating damage. Right here, I'm going to gate in. I'm trying to gate in. It's not working for some reason. I gate in. I try to get a Hodge here. I don't think I get this. I need to get that toy that gates for me. I trinketed there. I should have Hodged. I'm like kind of trolling here a little bit. My Hodge forces human trinket right there. Now our pressure is insane right now, right? I juke him here and I get a full rep here because of that juke, right? What I should have done is I should have gone for another rep immediately the second I got that rep, because I have a consecrate down and the consecrate broke the rep, right? But it's fine. Our pressure is fine. I can sit this clone because I have Aura Mastery up. I still have bubble. I still have lay. My Warlock just dark packed it. I have Hodge here, so I instantly go in for the Hodge, overlap it with the Fear, which is fine. I get a full rep. I keep my partner alive. Now my team is dying, but I'm choosing to cast a rep. I'm choosing to double rep right here over healing my partners because I have a massive amount of healing, and my monk just karma'd, so I know he's fine, and I still have an absurd amount of healing, so I can catch up. I try to glare. I juke the Pally. I should have glared the Warlock here, but instead I'm choosing to run to Hodge the Pally. I Hodge the Pally here. He bubbles the Hodge, and the Warlock dies here because our pressure is so insane because of rep. Repentance is insane, man. Our pressure is so crazy this game because I'm constantly sitting there chasing the Pally, hodging him, and repping him the entire game. Okay. Now, this is going to be one of the harder matches, and this is one of the better RMPs on NA. RMP is really hard because RMP is like, they should always win the matchup, but you can win a lot as well, right? If you perfectly rotate your cooldowns and you rotate properly, you can win a lot of these games. But the issue with RMP is that they can just, no matter how ahead you are versus RMP, they could instantly win, okay, on a go. And they have goes like every 30 to 36 seconds, okay? So you have to constantly be rotating and not overlapping cooldowns. One thing with RMP is you have to learn how to play versus the priest that you're playing and differentiate between when you can play offensive or when you can sit back and spam heal and not play offensive, right? So here, this game, I'm not playing that offensive on this priest. I'm just like, most of the game, I am chill, I am laid back, and I'm just spam healing my partners and keeping everyone alive. Same thing here. I run up with my mount, I cast Tears, I cast Hand of Divinity. Notice I didn't run to the pillar. I just immediately casted Hand of Divinity and Tears because this rogue is trying to come sap me, right? So I want to make sure I get Tears and Hand of Divinity up before I get sapped. I put up Summer. I Holy Prism. Unfortunately, it doesn't take him out. And I think I get sapped here. But now I have 2 Dawn Lights and a Divine Purpose proc. Okay, so I didn't get sapped there. I chose to instantly sack there because I just want to kind of like run in and pressure this priest ASAP with that sack. So when you have sack up is really a time where you can actually like pressure up versus RMP and actually try to get some CC. Now, I don't really have high hopes of getting this rep here because the mage has like 5 different ways to stop me and they can kick me. And then the priest has fade, death, fear. The mage has ring, DB, knockback, kick. You know, he can sheep me. So I just run in, but I'm kind of like pressuring this priest right now while I'm keeping my Warlock alive, forcing him to move left and right and forcing him to not heal his partners or not do damage, right? Because priests actually do a ton of damage. So at the same time, I'm keeping my partner alive. Now, fortunately there he feared me, but the last tick of the sack that I had on the Warlock broke the fear. So I was able to sit that CC and not trinket or bubble, right? Now I get a Hodge here, he bombs it, he trinkets the Hodge. I'm not actually sure why he trinketed that Hodge. That was a really bad play by him, and it was probably what cost him this game, to be completely honest. So my monk bombed. I'm not panicking because he has trinket karma, and I'm not panicking to save him because there's no point for me to run with where I am right now. There's no point for me to run in to try to save him. I could horse freedom myself. I don't even have freedom, but I could horse, run through, and try to save him. But by the time I get there, he's already dead anyways. So there's no point for me to do that. Right? So I just sit back here. He trinkets. He doesn't karma. He doesn't diffuse. The mage ice walls, but I top him in between the time he steps out the bomb. I get kicked here, but I have a divine purpose, so I can still cast if I need to. I get stunned. That was a good cast there because I got kicked and stunned at the same time, so it overlapped, so it was fine. Now I'm getting swapped on here. Now right here, I'm pretty sure I have to lay, which is fine. That was a good use of lay right there. I definitely didn't want to bubble there because I was out of CC and I had lay. So my positioning here is kind of bad. I'm in the middle of the map and I'm getting spam CC'd and spam killed and spam swapped on. But I'm trying to play offensive versus this priest and CC him. Right? So we're just spamming out Holy Shock, spamming out Eternal Flames. Trying to recover here because I can't really, like, you see I just lost another Rising Sunlight proc because I was CC'd for so much I wasn't really able to even cast Holy Shock. I get blinded here. I'm gonna sit this. My Warlock is gonna port here, so he's fine. I'm almost positive he's gonna port, or he's just gonna stay. I'm just gonna randomly heal him. See, like, I'm expecting him to port, but he doesn't, right? He's just staying offensive. So I'm like constantly like going back and forth between his port and him. Like, I'm a little confused here what he's gonna do. He should have ported, but he's still just sitting there doing damage, which is fine because he's doing an absurd amount of damage. Look at his damage. And somehow we still lived. If this mage had pushed up the CC me right here, we would have probably had to either wall, trinket, or bubble. Right? He dark packs. I know he's fine. I have a ton of healing. I have a divine toll. Right? Holy Shock. I still have a Rising Sunlight. My monk gets kidneyed behind the wall. He's fine though. I AM the kidney behind the wall and the ulti penance. Ulti penance does quite a bit of damage actually, but you never want to specifically like sack or AM a ulti penance alone by itself. But that was a good AM because my monk is behind the pillar, stunned, and I can't reach him, right? So he could actually die, right? Now they're gonna probably try to swap to me here. I don't really know what they're doing. Now I'm pushing up because I'm trying to CC this priest right now, okay? And he has fade, he has death, and I can get sheep here very soon, right? So it's going to be really hard to get this rep here. I get a Hodge off because he got kicked, but I get swapped on here. Now, instead of bubbling here, I choose to bop myself. So I bop the stun. He can't re-stun me because he didn't steal the bop fast enough. And I can top myself and not have to use bubble here. Right? And he stole the bop at the last second, right as I LOS'd, and they still almost killed me. So if he stole that bop like a slight second faster, I would have had the bubble. But it was a good bop because it allowed me to save. Bubble. He fears me there, but the mage is hitting me and it breaks instantly. I get sheeped. I'm gonna sit all this. So RMP, you're just playing greedy. You're playing somewhat defensive but offensive at the same time whenever you can, and you're just sitting as much CC as you possibly can without pressing cooldowns. Okay. I'm choosing to cast the Tears here in a Hand of Divinity because I need to catch up, and he doesn't have kick for 6 seconds, so I know I'm able to get these. I get step kicked right there, which is fine. I get the glare off. I get the Hand of Divinity. You know, just keep my partners alive. Right here, I freedom Hodge horse, and he incaps. But if my monk didn't incap there, I would have gotten a full rep. We kind of overlapped every CC here, which is kind of bad, but it's fine. So I have a ton of cooldowns, right? We have bubble, we have wings, trinket. He has trinket port, he has wall, he has dark back, he has karma, he has trinket coming up. I have divine toll. So we're in a very good spot right now. The only person that can really die right now is me. Right? You see me wings here, and then judgment to extend the wings. So I have a fat wings here. Keep my monk alive. My monk could actually die here, but he's fine because I have the most amount of healing, right? So like right there, I didn't have to trinket, I didn't have to bubble because I have wings up with Rising Sunlight procs, with daybreak, with dawnlight procs, and with a judgment proc. So I have the fattest amount of healing possible. Right. So like right here, as you noticed, at the beginning of the match, I was playing very offensive in that priest's face, constantly trying to CC. Right here, I'm taking a step back. And I'm just focusing on keeping my partners alive. Right? So you have to differentiate between the two playstyles every single game. Right? Because this team is constantly swapping to me and they're trying to kill me. And I realized that, I acknowledged that early on in the game, and now I'm playing defensively, so they can't do that. They can't kill me, right? But if you're a newer paladin or you're not that good at pally and you don't acknowledge these things and you're getting constantly swapped on, you're eventually going to die trying to CC the priest, right? So right here, we're just kind of CCing, like, I have Hodge. I'm going to Hodge the rogue here most likely because the priest cleansed. I'm going to try to rep the rogue. He kicks me. I Crusader strike the rogue right there. While I got kicked, I got 3 holy power and I wogged my warlock. And he dark packed and poured it. If I didn't Crusader strike and Eternal Flame my lock right there, he would have either had to wall or I think he might have died. I'm going to summer him here after I Divine Toll most likely. I have summer up. Yep, I summer the warlock to help with healing. So right now the game is starting to become a mana issue because the game is going on long, right? And it's going to come down to mana eventually if we don't kill this rogue or this mage. So I'm just constantly max ranging the mage, sheeping the polys on the monk, just constantly spam wogging, keeping down consecrate on myself. I get sheep there, my lock ports on the sheep. I know the monk is fine because he's mind controlled. I choose to drink here for a second. Okay, so I got like, I think I got like 20% mana. Oh wow, I got like 30% mana. Okay, that was massive. I pre-sacked the bomb there because I knew, so I knew they saw me drinking and my warlock was starting to die. So I knew something was going to happen here because the rogue trinketed as well. So I chose to sack the second I came in line of sight. And the second I came in line of sight, the rogue saw that and he bombed the warlock. Because he doesn't have trinket, so he can't trinket port. Okay, and I kept him alive because of the sack. Now my monk is a little overextended right now. He gets feared, but he gets the karma off, so he's fine. I'm not panicking on the monk. I get a toll right there. I get a judgment. I get a wog. So that judgment right there was actually extremely risky. My monk was taking a ton of damage, and instead of judging right there, I should have just healed him. Because he actually almost died in that split global that I judged to get the wings proc, and then I wogged and holy shocked. Alright, we're just healing everyone. Now I have a ton of cooldowns rotating right now and coming up. I glare the rogue. You never want to try to overextend to glare the mage. It's not going to be worth it. You're going to get stopped like 99% of the times. Keep freedoms on my monk. Keep down consecrate on the port. My guy gets kicked. My guy gets kidneyed there. I should have ore mastered here, but we have so much pressure. We have so much offensive pressure right now that they're playing defensively. The rogue vanishes, the mage blocks during PI, so there's no damage really going out right now. So I don't have the ore mastery. I still have bubble. I still have ore mastery. I still have trinket. I don't have wings. I just used it. See how I'm not overextending? I'm staying away from the mage. I'm just spam hodging the rogue. Just mitigating damage. This is the only time in the game that we can lose is this ice wall right here. So the second I see the ice wall, I choose to run left. In hindsight, I should have ran right because my lock is getting MC'd right here. And what's going to happen is the mage is probably going to ring here and I'm going to get feared by the priest. So I should have gone right and it would have forced the priest to travel a lot more to CC me, and I would have gotten a lot more heals off. But it's fine. I get a prism out before I get rung feared. So we got lucky here that I got feared into the ring. So they overlap CC here, which is very good for us. And I trinketed that. I trinketed there because we are so far ahead on cooldowns. The priest is almost doomed. The mage has no blocks. The rogue has no trinkets. None of them have trinkets. He doesn't have vanish. The only thing he has is will, right? So I still have bubble. That's all I got actually, just bubble. I have glare coming up, but glare is kind of not that good. I just try to cast a rep there. I get kicked, which is fine. I have an eternal flame if I need to. Now here's when I start to realize that we're winning offensively, especially the way we're playing. So I choose to keep playing the way we're playing. Right here, I could die here, but I wall and I gauge my HP. I don't bubble because I'm fine. And I hodged the rogue to just mitigate damage. I couldn't hodge the priest anyways because he was precogged. So I'm just hodging the rogue to mitigate damage. When that hodge is about to run out, I get a glare off to chain it. So I basically just hodged this rogue for like fucking 8 seconds. Essentially I hodged this rogue for 8 seconds. Because the hodge didn't get cleansed and the glare didn't get cleansed. Right, I get a tears here. Now notice in between the tears, my warlock is taking a lot of damage, so he dark packs, and instead of casting the Hand of Divinity, I step out and sack him, and I LOS again, and I cast the Hand of Divinity, and I top him with this massive Wings from Judgment and Holy Light. Boom, just instant full health. Log myself to top myself, get rid of the Absorb. I still have one more Holy Light. Boom, full health. Rogue dies. All right, I have 38% mana. The priest has 10%, right? All right, guys. This is actually a very, very long guide. So if you enjoyed it, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like. I'm going to be streaming on Twitch literally anytime I play. If you want to watch PvP, highest rating, at the higher ratings, Blitz when I start to push Blitz, and keys. I do keys as well. I'm going to be pushing all 20s very soon because I need to try to get save title before the season ends. I'll be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/KillerKTV. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, if you guys have any questions or you have any suggestions for anything that I missed, I'm sure I've missed a ton of stuff, just mention it in the comment. Please mention it in the comments so I can actually look at it and see it and add it to my next guide that I make. All right, GG's guys. Peace.